My name is Sophia Reynolds. I am 32 years old. 4 years ago, my husband Derek stood in front of his whole family at Thanksgiving and laughed out loud when I mentioned expanding my online business, telling everyone I was the dreamer who needed a real job instead of wasting time on something that would never pay the bills. Now everything is colliding in this packed emergency room where my mother-in-law has just been admitted after a bad fall at home machines, beeping around us while my husband is already demanding I empty my savings account to cover the medical bills because his family expects me to step up like I always have. I overhear him whispering to his brother about putting my name on new loan papers to keep things quiet. Right then and there, I clench my fists and promise myself I will not let them keep erasing the woman I have become in silence. If you have ever felt invisible in your own marriage, or had family treat you like the automatic safety net hit, that like button and drop in the comments where you are watching from and what time it is there. Your stories keep me going. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead while I sat in the hard plastic chair clutching my phone like a lifeline. My husband turned from the nurse's station, his face already tight with that familiar mix of frustration and entitlement. He walked straight over and ignored the fact that I had driven us here in record time after his frantic call. "Sophia, this is serious," he said, voice low but sharp enough to cut. "The initial tests are going to run at least $42,000 before insurance even kicks in properly. You know my mother has always been there for us. It is time you finally contributed something meaningful instead of hiding behind that little online thing you call a business." His words landed like a slap. I felt my stomach drop. My sister Lauren sat 2 chairs away with eyes wide but stayed silent. My brother-in-law Tyler leaned against the wall with arms crossed, watching like this was entertainment. I opened my mouth to answer, but my husband cut me off. "Do not start with the excuses. We all know you have been playing around with that website for years while I carry the real load. If you actually cared about this family, you would have a proper job by now." The nurse returned with more paperwork. My husband snatched the clipboard and shoved it toward me. "Sign it. Put your name down for the payment plan. We will figure out how to pay it later." I stared at the forms while my mind raced back to the private office I kept across town. 15 boutique inns scattered across Arizona and New Mexico waited under my holding company that I had built from the first struggling property I bought with every penny I had saved in secret. I had learned the business from the ground up negotiating deals at night while my husband thought I was just browsing the internet. The profits had grown steadily, but I kept my name off most documents on purpose. Walking through my own properties without being recognized taught me exactly how people treated you when they thought you were nobody. My husband tapped the pen against the clipboard impatiently. "Sophia, today, my mother is lying in that bed because of this fall, and you are sitting here like it does not even matter." That last word stung deeper than the rest. I felt heat rise in my cheeks but kept my voice steady. "Derek, can we talk about this privately for a second?" He laughed, that short, bitter sound I had come to hate. "Privately, the whole family is here. There is nothing to hide. Unless you have something you want to confess about why you cannot help when it actually counts." My mother-in-law, Evelyn, called out weakly from the bed down the hall. "Derek, honey, tell Sophia it is fine if she cannot afford it. We would not want to burden the one who never quite fits in." The room went quiet. My sister Lauren shifted uncomfortably but said nothing. My brother-in-law, Tyler, smirked. My husband nodded as if my mother-in-law had spoken gospel. "See, even she knows. Just sign the papers, Sophia. Stop making this harder than it has to be." I felt the old familiar weight settle on my chest, but beneath that weight, something else stirred sharper and angrier than before. They had no idea who they were really talking to. I slipped into the hallway and fired off a quick text to Marcus Hale, the general manager I trusted with everything at my properties. "Check the emergency reserve accounts. We may need to move funds quietly." His reply came back almost instantly. "Already on it, boss." "Everything stable," I typed back one word. "For now." When I returned, my husband was waiting with arms crossed. "Where did you disappear to, probably checking your little side hustle instead of helping?" Before I could respond, my mother-in-law called out again and my husband rushed in, dragging my cousin Ryan Beckett with him. Ryan had arrived still wearing his suit from the office after my husband texted him on the way. He clapped my husband on the back like they were old war buddies. "Derek called me on the drive over, said you might need some convincing about the loan. I brought the preliminary paperwork. We can get this wrapped up tonight if you stop fighting it, Sophia." My husband nodded gratefully. Exactly. Ryan understands. He knows what it means to put family first instead of hiding behind some website that probably makes pocket change. I stared at the new forms Ryan slid across the table. My hands shook as I picked them up. The secret of my 15 boutique inns burned hotter than ever. I could end this right now with one call to Marcus. But something in my husband's sneer told me that would not fix anything. It would only give him a new target. He would spin it as me, lying for years while pretending to struggle. The humiliation would flip right back onto me. Ryan leaned in with voice smooth but firm. Look, the interest rate is only 8% if we move fast. Derek says you have been saving from that online thing. This is the perfect time to prove you are part of the team. My husband crossed his arms with eyes locked on me. Or maybe you are not. Maybe you never have been. 4 years of me carrying us while you played pretend entrepreneur. Time to grow up, Sophia. The words cut deep because they were not new. This was the same pattern that had been building since the day we got married. My husband initiated every financial fight, every public jab about my little business, every time he made sure the family saw me as the weak link. Dr. Elena Vargas stepped into the lounge then with clipboard in hand. She had been my mother-in-law's attending physician since the ambulance arrived. My husband immediately waved her over. Doctor, perfect timing. Tell my wife here how serious this is so she stops dragging her feet on the deposit. Dr. Vargas cleared her throat, clearly uncomfortable. The latest scans show some complications from the fall. We are looking at an additional $27,000 in specialist consults and possible physical therapy starting next week. Insurance will cover most eventually, but the upfront costs need to be settled by morning or we have to delay care. My husband jumped on it instantly. See, even the doctor agrees. Sign the paper, Sophia. Or are you going to stand there and let my mother suffer because you cannot be bothered to contribute? I felt the blood drain from my face. The numbers were climbing faster than I could track, and every single demand came straight from my husband's mouth first. He was the one steering this entire conversation, turning a medical emergency into another chance to remind me of my place. Amanda Torres. My friend who had rushed over after I texted her from the car tried to speak up. Derek, maybe we can explore payment plans or charity options first. But my husband cut her off with a sharp laugh. This is not your business, Amanda. This is between me and my wife. Sophia knows what she needs to do. That was when my husband pulled out his own phone and started scrolling through contacts. Fine. If you will not do it, I will start with your parents. Let them hear how their daughter is abandoning my mother in her time of need. The threat landed like a final punch. I grabbed my keys with voice barely steady. I need 10 minutes alone to think. He laughed bitterly. 10 minutes. Make it 5. And do not disappear like you always do when things get real. I walked out of the lounge with pulse pounding, already planning the short drive to my private office. Marcus was waiting. The truth was waiting. But as the elevator doors closed behind me, I realized my husband had followed me into the hallway. He was not letting me out of his sight. His voice echoed down the corridor. Where exactly do you think you're going, Sophia? We are not done here. I froze with my hand still on the elevator button. My husband strode toward me with shoes squeaking on the linoleum and his face set in that familiar mix of anger and superiority. A minute my mother is in there fighting complications from her fall, and you want a minute. You have spent 4 years hiding behind that online business while I handle everything. This is your chance to finally act like a wife instead of a burden. Or are you planning to run off and pretend none of this matters? Dr. Vargas stepped out at that exact moment, glancing between us with clear concern. My husband seized the opening immediately. Doctor, my wife here is still hesitating on the deposit. Tell her again how critical it is so she understands she cannot keep delaying. The doctor hesitated but spoke. We really do need confirmation within the hour or the specialist slot will go to someone else. The additional $27,000 in care cannot wait. My husband turned back to me with a cold smile. Hear that? Stop making excuses and do what needs to be done. Unless you want me calling your parents right now to explain why their daughter is abandoning my family in an emergency. The threat hung there like a live wire. I felt my stomach twist, but I knew fighting him openly in the hallway would only escalate things faster. Amanda appeared behind him with her face pale. Derek, this is getting out of control. Sophia is trying. He cut her off without even looking. This is between me and my wife Amanda. Stay out of it. Then he focused on me again. You have hidden enough, Sophia. 4 years of me covering for your little hobby while you act like you contribute nothing real. Sign the papers, or I swear this changes everything between us. I swallowed hard with mind racing. Marcus was still waiting on my text. The reserve funds could cover the entire amount quietly with no questions asked. But if I did it without telling my husband, he would eventually find out through the joint account alerts and spin it as more proof I was untrustworthy. If I revealed everything now, he would turn my success into another weapon against me. Either way, he was the one forcing the choice, the one who had spent years chipping away at my confidence so I would always feel one step behind. My cousin Ryan stepped into the hallway with paperwork in hand. Derek texted me the update. Sophia, the loan is ready. Just sign and we can move forward. Your husband has been carrying this load long enough. My husband nodded, clapping Ryan on the shoulder. Exactly. Ryan gets it. He knows what real partnership looks like. The pressure built like a storm I could not outrun. I pulled out my phone under the pretense of checking the time and fired one quick text to Marcus. Wire the full amount anonymously to the hospital account now. Use the emergency reserve. Do not attach any name. His reply came back instantly. Done, boss. Funds transferred. Hospital will confirm in minutes. I slipped the phone away before my husband could snatch it again. Fine, I said quietly. I will handle the deposit. My husband's eyebrows shot up, but instead of relief, suspicion flashed across his face. Just like that, after all the arguing, what changed, Sophia? You suddenly have the money you swore you did not have. Before I could answer, Dr. Vargas's pager beeped. She checked it and looked surprised. Actually, the accounting department just notified me the full deposit has been paid in full, including the specialist consults. It came through as an anonymous family contribution. The hallway went silent for a beat. My husband's expression shifted from suspicion to something darker. Anonymous. Who the hell would do that without saying anything? He rounded on me immediately. Sophia, did you do this? Have you been hiding money this whole time while I begged you to contribute? I felt the trap snap shut around me. The secret was out, but not on my terms. Derek, it is not what you think. He laughed bitter and loud enough that a nurse down the hall glanced over. Not what I think. 4 years you let me believe we were scraping by because of your failed little business. 4 years I carried us financially while you played pretend. And now, in the middle of my mother's emergency, you magically produced the money anonymously. You have been lying to me this entire time. Ryan stepped closer with eyes narrowing. Derek is right. This looks bad, Sophia. If you had funds available, why put us all through this tonight? My husband was not done. He stepped even closer with voice dropping to that cutting tone he reserved for when he wanted to wound deepest. You know what this proves. You have never been on my side. You have been hoarding resources while watching me struggle to keep this family afloat. My mother is lying in that bed, and you turn this into some power play. Typical Sophia, always thinking about yourself first. The words hit like physical blows. Amanda tried to pull me aside, but my husband blocked her. No, she stays right here and explains herself. Or are you going to run again? I stood there while the victory of covering the medical costs turned to ash in my mouth. The funds had saved the immediate crisis, but my husband had already twisted it into fresh proof of my betrayal. He initiated every single attack, every jab, every demand, and now he was using my own secret kindness against me. Dr. Vargas excused herself quickly, clearly uncomfortable, but my husband kept going. From now on, things change, he said with voice hard. No more hiding accounts, no more little businesses you control alone. We are putting everything joint, and you are finally going to contribute like a real partner instead of this secret dreamer act you have been pulling. I felt the walls of my carefully built life closing in. The 15 boutique inns I had grown from nothing were still mine on paper, but if I fought him now, he would drag the whole family into it and paint me as the liar who had deceived everyone. My sister Lauren appeared at the end of the hall with eyes wide, but she said nothing. My brother-in-law Tyler just watched with arms crossed, clearly siding with my husband as always. In that moment, I made the painful choice. I could have revealed the full truth right there, shown the ownership documents on my phone, and watched their faces change. But I knew it would not end the war. It would only give my husband new ways to control me and new reasons to resent me for having succeeded without him. So I chose the lesser evil. I stayed silent. I let him believe he had won this round. I will transfer everything to the joint account tomorrow. I said quietly with the words, tasting like defeat. My husband's smile was cold triumph. Good. Finally. See, that was not so hard. Maybe now you will stop pretending you are something you are not. The next morning, we drove home from the hospital in heavy silence. My mother-in-law had been discharged with instructions for follow-up care, and my husband spent the entire ride listing every expense he now expected me to cover openly. When we pulled into the driveway, he turned to me with a satisfied nod. First thing tomorrow, we sit down and go through all your logins. No more secrets, Sophia. This is what partnership looks like. I nodded without arguing because any pushback would only bring more calls to the family. That afternoon, my sister Lauren stopped by with a casserole and lingered in the kitchen while my husband explained the new rules to her as if I were not even there. She finally stepped up last night, he said with pride in his voice that felt like another slap. Turns out she had some savings after all. We are doing full transparency from now on. My sister offered a small smile but avoided my eyes. That is good, Derek. Family has to stick together in times like this. The words echoed through the house like a sentence. Over the following week, my husband scheduled daily meetings at the dining table where he reviewed every transaction from my business accounts. He demanded I add him as co-owner on the platform I had spent 4 years building. When I hesitated, he reminded me of the hospital night and how I had lied by omission. Victor Klein, one of my husband's longtime business associates, even dropped by one evening to offer advice on proper financial management for couples. Each conversation chipped away at the independence I had guarded so carefully. I met Marcus Hale in a quiet coffee shop across town 2 weeks later under the pretense of running errands. He slid a folder across the table with updated quarterly reports showing strong growth in the ins. Boss, the numbers are solid, but if he keeps pushing for full access, you risk losing control of the core holdings. We can set up some protective structures, but it will take time and paperwork. I stared at the papers, feeling the weight of my choice settle deeper. I cannot fight him right now, Marcus, not without tearing everything apart. Marcus nodded with understanding but concern in his eyes. Just remember the empire is still yours. Do not let him erase that completely. Back at home that evening, my husband greeted me with the same cold smile he had worn in the hospital hallway. Good timing. Ryan sent over the new joint account setup. Sign these tonight and we can finally move past all the drama from the ER. I signed because the alternative felt heavier. My mother-in-law called the next day to thank my husband for handling everything so well, while barely mentioning my contribution. My brother-in-law Tyler texted him support, and my sister Lauren sent a message saying she was proud I had finally grown up. Each small victory for my husband reinforced the narrative he had built for 4 years. I was the dreamer who had finally been put in her place. Months passed, and the restrictions became normal. My husband reviewed every business decision. He attended meetings with Marcus under the guise of being supportive. The 15 boutique inns continued to thrive, but I felt smaller inside them. The woman who had built an empire in secret now answered to the man who had never believed in her. I chose silence to keep the peace, and the peace cost me my freedom. I sat in my car outside the hospital one final evening, staring at the building where everything had unraveled. My husband had won again, not because he was right, but because I had chosen the painful path of least resistance. The empire I built in secret was still mine on paper, but emotionally I felt smaller than ever. He remained untouched still, the strong provider in everyone's eyes, still the one who could initiate every fight and walk away believing he had been justified. I started the engine and drove away, knowing I had failed to break the cycle. The regret sat heavy in my chest, a quiet defeat that no amount of money or properties could fix. Sometimes choosing yourself means accepting the isolation that comes with it, even when the price feels unbearable.